Good morning, Cerebral football fans. My name is Stephen Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Media Company. And today's topic, we're going to talk about this quarterback class. So you guys saw the question that was posed in the title of the video, which is, are any of these quarterbacks any good in this 2022 NFL draft class? And I do think this is a bit of a complex question, to be quite honest, right? Because there are some things that no matter how much you scout, how much you watch film of, you just can't determine it. Like, there's just no way of determining certain factors and certain things. And I'll give you a very clear instance to open our discussion today, which is I'm going to give you a lot of numbers that has to do with, their performance versus pressure. The way their ratios break down in terms of throws under 2.5 seconds as opposed to over 2.5 seconds. And there's some things that can't be known. Like, number one, what guys just weren't in love with the scheme in which they were playing in, and it was actually deterring their performance. That's hard to say. What guys might rank high in some of these ratios of above and under 2.5 seconds, right? But truth be told, they were still kind of not where the system and the scheme wanted them to be. They were kind of having to be forced along into being that player. Some of those things that you really can only know if you have connections to the staff and can talk to somebody one-on-one honestly about like what's being said to some of these young men inside the film room. But I do have a very interesting conversation lined up today to talk about, because I'm going to talk about all these guys that I have, broken down and listed here. And then I'm also going to talk about some of the numbers from the last 4 draft classes in this current one. So we're going to talk about the last 4 draft classes. Got 10 of those guys broken down in terms of their 2021 performance. And we'll kind of try to tie this into a neat bow if we can, guys. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit. So let's talk about some of these young men's performance versus pressure. The first question you guys might ask it, and I get it, guys, which is, why is pressure kind of like something that scouts go to? Why would we care about pressure? It's about what you can do when the pocket breaks down. It's what you can do when things aren't perfect, right? I think it gives you not a perfect indicator, but a better indicator of how a guy's going to perform at the NFL when the speed of the game changes drastically for said player. Now, in terms of how some of these guys performed, it was a little up and down the board. I mean, Skylar Thompson's kind of a little unknown guy coming out of Kansas State. I don't mean little as in terms of his stature, guys, just unknown, if you will. Coming out of Kansas State, played fairly well against pressure, but I have some underlying concerns about Skylar Thompson, but I do like him as a kind of unheralded, unknown, late round kind of back of your roster selection at quarterback. He played pretty well against pressure. Out of all these young men, and out of the last 5 draft classes, that includes this current draft class, guys, he ranked fifth out of 40 quarterbacks. I basically broke it down into 4 previous draft class by the rounds 1 through 3, if you will. So Skylar Thompson, what were his numbers versus pressure, guys? He was 43 of 70, which was 61.4%, 641 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interception. I gave him a 64.5. PFF independent grade. It's their own kind of proprietary grade, guys. It has nothing to do with me. It's just an impartial viewpoint about it. 6 big-time throws, which was a 7.8%. Anything over 7 is normally pretty good, guys. To 6 turnover-worthy passes, 5.9%. You would expect young quarterbacks to probably make a mistake here and there versus pressure. Average depth of target, 9.2 yards. Pretty close to the standard average area of target. Throwaway, 7. Sacks, 18. Pressure to sack rate, which is probably the better indicator instead of just looking at your overall sack numbers. His pressure to sack rate was 19.1. A little high, but not drastically crazy. Time to throw under pressure, 3.8 seconds. I'll tell you this. All these guys' numbers in college would never work in the pros. You can't take 3.8 seconds in the pros. You're going to get lit up. But in terms of the college numbers, that's only slightly high. That's not like ridiculously high. When you start getting over the 4.0 mark, that's when it's like, okay, this guy's got an issue. So looking past that, guys, 6 scrambles and 105.7 NFL passer rating versus pressure. Skylar Thompson was the highest graded person from this current draft class that I had broken down versus pressure. Doesn't mean he's the best player, guys. Understand the distinguishing points here. It means if I'm looking for a value guy and why I might draft a dude, his performance versus pressure may sway me one way or the other to say, hey, this young man does have some underlying talent here. The next guy on this list ranks number 11 out of the 40 quarterbacks I've broken down over this draft class and the 4 previous. Desmond Ritter, quarterback, Cincinnati. Here's his numbers versus pressure, ladies and gents. 27 to 63, which is a 42.9% completion rate, 522 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Independent grade by PFF of a 62, guys. 5 big-time throws for a 7.5% big-time throw rate, right around the norm. 4 turnover-worthy passes, 3.8% there. Average depth of target, 14.6. Sorry, guys, I got a cough. That is a really good average depth of target. He was taking his shots down the field versus pressure. That's very clear. 7 throwaways, 27 sacks. His pressure to sack rate, 26.7. This is where it gets a little concerning with a guy like Desmond Ritter. Now, when you cross over the 20% mark, there's an underlying issue, right? Now, it could be your feel for the pocket. It could be your feel for how to glide and how to slide in the pocket. It could be you just lack the instincts to sense pressure. It could be that you're just having really bad dropbacks and you're putting yourself into harm's way. Hard to say, guys. You need a lot more film to determine those things. But immediately when I see a marker like that, I'm going to go look. You know what I mean? Outside of that, guys, a 3.46 time to throw. For a college quarterback, anything under 3.5 seconds, it means that he's ahead of his peers. That's actually a really good marker. It's not good in pros, guys. That, once again, get you killed. But for a college quarterback, it's a really good marker. 11 scrambles and a 90.8 NFL passer rating versus pressure. I will say that Desmond Ritter's a little complex because there's a little part of his game where it's kind of a, oh, crap, here comes pressure. Let me just throw it up to Alex Pierce and hope he comes down with the football. There's certainly an element of that to his football game. I'm acknowledging it, guys, but I'm just giving you the basic numbers, guys. This is what the numbers say here. The next guy up on this list versus pressure would be 14th out of 40 quarterbacks broken down, which would be Kenny Pickett, guys. Kenny Pickett comes in next. 45 out of 102, which is a 44.1% completion rate, 570 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He definitely beat pressure. He had a 60 passer rating, was an independent grade given to him by PFF. That's their passing grade, not rating, guys. My bad. 9 big-time throws, which was an 8% mark. Now we're starting to see a guy who he makes some plays versus pressure. We're starting to see that big-time throw rate creep up a little bit. 8 turnover-worthy passes, which was 4.6%. He makes mistakes versus pressure. Jaylen, Williams, Caleb, and myself, when we broke down this video on Friday, all 3 of us said that we did notice that about Kenny Pickett, that I definitely think he's more pro-ready than some of the other quarterbacks, but versus pressure, he has some really spectacular plays, and in some plays that it was kind of like, what is this young man thinking? He definitely put the ball in harm's way. An average depth of target of 13.6. He did push the ball downfield versus pressure. 20 throwaways. He wasn't afraid to throw the ball away. 31 sacks. Concerning, right? 19.3 pressure to sack rate, though, so probably has some room for improvement here, right? But I wouldn't say it's drastically high when you look at the percentage. A 4.2 time to throw. That's what concerns me about Kenny Pickett, guys. He's slow. He's very slow at getting that ball out of his hand. And a 4.2 marker against pressure, not good. That's not good at all. Not realistic for the NFL. 28 scrambles, so there's some ability here with Kenny Pickett. He's a better athlete than what people think. An 86.6 passer rating, NFL passer rating versus pressure. The next guy up is Sam Howell, another one of these guys that's pro-ready. I'm going to make some points about Sam Howell just because I know Sam Howell's game very well. Take it with a grain of salt, guys. I'm an NC State guy. You're not going to find a lot of compliments coming from me towards UNC players. But I'll be as unbiased as I can possibly be within my inner being here. Sam Howell, 33 of 75. 44% completion rate, 561 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a 49.1 independent passing grade given to him by PFF versus pressure. 6 big-time throws, 7.1%, so 7% being the standard. 8 turnover-worthy passes, 4.1%. He put the ball in harm's way versus pressure. An average depth of target of 15 yards. Sam Howell has a very good arm. I will give him credit for that. And he will absolutely try to push the ball down the field. Throwaways, 11. Sacks, 49. This has a lot to do with how bad UNC's offensive line is, to be fair. If I'm being honest and fair to Sam Howell, as an NC State guy, grading a UNC guy, their offensive line was not very good, and he was missing a lot of weapons. I mean, you know, he lost some guys, Daz Newsome, and, you know, he lost Diani Brown, Javonte Williams, and Michael Carter. I mean, he lost some pieces offensively. I mean, their offense was absolutely centered around what he can do. That was 49 sacks, worked their way out to a 31.8 pressure to sack percentage. Although the offensive line was bad, you got to look at that, man. There's something going on underneath the surface here. There's something that has to be improved from him versus pressure. So Time to throw, 3.82 seconds. Like I said, in eternity in the NFL. I'm not saying that's a good marker. I think it's a little below average for college, but it's not drastically bad. Anything over 4 is where you get really concerned with college quarterbacks. That means they're taking entirely too long to read the field, or they're just trying entirely too hard to play hero ball. 31 scrambles. He's got some mobility. He can move. He can run. He had 800 some yards on the season as a rusher, and 83.3 NFL passer rating. I will say I'll give you one big critique of Sam Howell that I saw from his film so far, because I've had an opportunity to watch a lot of Sam Howell's play. He drops his eyes a lot, guys. He's got to get better keeping his eyes down the field. He is very quick versus pressure to drop his eyes and try to run. At the next level, and mind you, it's not easy when you're being sacked 49 times in college and 31% rate there, almost 32% pressure to sack rate. But you got to, I do worry about what that might have done to his psyche a little bit, because he got beat up a little bit this year with a bad offensive line. 21st out of 40 quarterbacks, Carson Strong versus pressure. 56 and 116, 48.3% completion rate. He's got a pretty decent completion rate versus pressure. 711 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Not a lot of big plays there, though. 45.6 independent passing grade from PFF, their rating. 2 big-time throws, which was a 1.6% rating. That's really below the average. That's not good at all, guys. 5 turnover-worthy passes, which was 3%. This is what bothers me about Carson Strong, because I think all the potential and all the possibilities are there. But I would expect a guy with his arm talent, he's got tremendous arm talent, to really light defenses up when they bring pressure. He should be a guy that absolutely punishes you when pressure gets on you. And there's just not a lot of big-time throws. I mean, we're talking 2 big-time throws on 95 attempts for a 1.9% percentage rate. I mean, that's not good enough, guys. I'm going to be honest. It's not good enough. Average depth of target, 9.7 yards, right around the standard. Throwaways, 23. 39 sacks. Another guy that took a lot of sacks. Pressure to sack rate, 24.5%. Got to look at how he's responding to pressure, guys. That's very important. I mean, numbers don't lie if you know how to filter them correctly. Now, you got to understand circumstance, and we have to break down circumstance and keep that in mind to say you can't make definitive statements. We can only make statements based upon the circumstance and the underlying numbers and what the film shows us. So 3.49 time to throw. Pretty decent for a college quarterback. At getting anything under 3.5 seconds is going to be decent, guys. In the NFL, like I said, guys, it'll get you killed. But in college, that's actually a decent marker. 6 scrambles, 75.8 passer rating versus pressure, which is not that great, guys. After that is Brock Purdy from Iowa State. He ranked 23rd. Oh, I'm sorry. Carson Strong, by the way, had 116 attempts versus pressure, not 95. I read that wrong, guys. And only 2 big-time throws. That's really not good. Brock Purdy had 47 and 95, which was a 49.5% completion rate. It's a really good completion rate versus pressure, to be honest. 597 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I can see the same kind of thing coming up here between Brock Purdy and then Carson Strong. They're not taking enough chances down the field versus pressure. Both of Brock Purdy doesn't have Carson Strong's arm, to be fair, but there's just not a lot of big-time throws versus pressure, and if you want to make a defense respect you got to beat it. A 49.4 independent grade from PFF. 2 big-time throws, which was a 1.9% marker. 7 turnover-worthy passes, a lot of turnover-worthy passes, guys. He made some bad decisions versus pressure, to be quite honest. 4.5%. Average depth of target, 10.3 yards, pushing the ball a little further than Carson Strong, honestly, to be fair, versus pressure. 21 throwaways, 22 sacks, a pressure to sack rate of 15.4%. Pretty good marker, especially versus pressure. That's a really good marker versus pressure. 4.31 time to throw. That is an eternity. That will not do in the NFL. That will absolutely put you on the injured reserve list. 26 scrambles. Brock Purdy's got a little bit of scramble ability, clearly. We can see that in the fact that he's holding the ball for 4.3 seconds while only being sacked on 15% of plays and his 26 scramble marks. I mean, he's clearly got some mobility. And then a 75.6 independent, but an NFL passer rating, 75.6. Jack Cohen from Notre Dame would be the next guy on this list, 24th out of 40 guys. 36 of 88, 40.9% completion rate, 41%. 513 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. A 55.1 independent grade from PFF. 4 big-time throws, works his way out to about 4%. It's under average. 1 turnover-worthy pass. That's a tremendous rate, guys. On 88 passes, to only have 1 turnover-worthy pass versus pressure for a 0.7%. Like he doesn't make bad decisions versus pressure, which is he's safe with the football, to say the least. An average depth of target of 10.4 yards, very reminiscent of Brock Purdy's area. 17 throwaways, 34 sacks. Here's where it gets a little interesting, though, where Brock Purdy gives you that mobility in the pocket, but definitely will put the ball in harm's way. Jack Cohen doesn't give you that same mobility, but doesn't put the ball in harm's way. He took 34 sacks for a pressure to sack rate of 27% versus pressure. Entirely too high, guys. But 3.1 time to throw. You don't have to work with him too much versus NFL level pressure if that's his rating, his marker. If 3.1 is his time to throw already in college versus pressure, he kind of gets it to get to that hot route, get to that alert read, and get the ball out of his hands. He's not got that much, there's not that much further for him to grow in terms of that. 5 scrambles, and then a 74.7 NFL passer rating. Number 30 out of 40 quarterbacks, Bailey Zappe versus pressure. This is what I think makes Bailey Zappe look a little human, guys, to be quite honest on this film. Bailey Zappe, 31 of 68, 45.6% completion rate. 382 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. It's just not enough productivity here. This is not enough. A 55.2 independent passer rating by PFF. Now, I will say 68 attempts means he didn't face a ton of pressure because Bailey Zappe threw the football a heck of a lot, guys. He by far threw the football more than any other player. So only 68, pressure snaps. It's pretty high, I should say, attempts versus pressure. 4 big-time throws, which works its way out to 5.5%. Still under the average of 7, guys, to be honest. 3 turnover-worthy passes, which is a 3.1 marker. He will put the ball in harm's way versus pressure. An average depth of target of 8.5 yards. He's not pushing the ball down the field. He's trying to get to that read and get the ball out of his hands. But to be fair, Bailey Zappe's not that kind of quarterback. He's not a guy that pushes the ball down the field. That's not what he is for you. 18 throwaways, 15 sacks, a pressure to sack rate of 16.5%. It's pretty good. It's a good marker, guys. I'm not going to lie. A 3.89 time to throw. We can see that as good as Bailey Zappe is, and he's normally pretty good about staying on time, about getting the ball to his hands fast. Versus pressure, he starts to look a little human. Now we see that 3.89 marker, which is not going to do you in the NFL. You got to be faster than that. 8 scrambles and a 67.2 NFL passer rating versus pressure. And then the last 2 guys we'll talk about here are Malik Willis and Matt Corral versus pressure. Malik Willis ranked 32 out of 40 quarterbacks that broke down over the 4 previous draft classes in this current one. Malik Willis, 28 of 72, 38.9% completion rate, 513 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. We see the youth in this young man right here because he's put the ball in harm's way, but he's also come up with some pretty big plays. An independent passer rating of a 53.2 given to him by PFF, passing grade, not rating, my bad. 13 big-time throws for a 15.7% marker. He can beat defenses when he sees it. When he sees it, he's very dangerous versus pressure. The problem is he's still young and he doesn't see it enough yet. And that's going to be his real hold-up here because he's got 8 turnover-worthy passes, which works his way out to 4.3 rating. So you got 4 picks and 8 turnover-worthy passes. It means he still needs this game to slow down a little bit for him. And that's even at the collegiate level, not alone the NFL level yet. Average depth of target, 16.3 yards. Just like Sam Howell, he will push the football down the field versus pressure. He's not scared to try to take those shots. Throwaways, 8. Sacks, 51. Pressure to sack rate, 30.5%. Both him and Sam Howell scare me with the hero ball aspect things of what might be going on there. Liberty is not a good football team. Malik Willis was clearly their most talented player. That offensive line was not very good, and I think that there's an element of Malik Willis here potentially playing hero ball, pushing those numbers way up there. A 4.63 time to throw, not going to do you, man. Not going to do you. He's got a long, long way to go in terms of the NFL. You cannot be holding the ball for 4.6 seconds versus pressure in the NFL. That'll definitely get you killed. 44 scrambles. We know that he's got athletic abilities. A 59.5 passer rating, NFL passer rating versus pressure. And the last guy on this list, Matt Carell, 38 out of 40 quarterbacks. In terms of their performance versus pressure, this is the 4 previous and then the current, guys, draft class. 36 of 84, 42.9% completion rate. 445 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. A lot of people have known this about Matt Corral, that the weakness of Matt Corral's game is versus pressure. He does not respond well to pressure. A 37 independent grade given to him by PFF. 3 big-time throws, which works his way out to a 3.3 marker. It's not nearly high enough for a guy that has the physical abilities of Matt Corral. He doesn't lack the physical talent, but the underlying analytics don't support a high-level player yet. And he's got 6 turnover-worthy passes for a 4.2 marker. So we got 4 turnovers with 6 turnover-worthy passes versus pressure. He's got a long ways to go versus pressure, guys. Average depth of target, 8.8 yards. He's definitely going to those alerts, trying to go underneath with it. Throwaways, 15. Sacks, 21. Pressure to sack rate, 15.4%. That's a bit of a saving grace here. He's not getting taken down very often versus pressure. That's not the problem. The problem's more so in understanding how to play on schedule when you get pressure, and in really understanding how to fill. Basically, you replace the defender with the football. He's got to get better at being able to do that. And I think that's where Matt Corral's game has to, and it's got to improve at the NFL level, to be quite honest. Another saving grace, he's not getting sacked a lot. And, even in college, 3.5 second time to throw number. That'll get you killed in the NFL, no doubt. But you can already see amongst these numbers I've read to you, in terms of college quarterbacks, he's ahead of his peers, to be quite honest. He understands that you got to get the ball out. He's just making bad decisions on where to go with the football at times. 29 scrambles. There's athletic ability here with Matt Corral. We all know that. And a 48 NFL passer rating versus pressure. I'll just state outward, guys. Do I think there's a Joe Burrow in this draft class? I said it in Friday's live stream. I'll say it in today's live stream. No, I don't. I don't think there is. Now, does that mean that none of these guys can eventually develop into like franchise quarterbacks? You can never tell, right? I mean, when you go back and you look at what happened with I believe it was the 2017 draft class where we had, Mahomes and Watson and those guys, nobody saw that coming. I mean, those guys turned out to be pretty good. Do I think any of these dudes are Mahomes or Watson? No, I don't. And that's just because of deeper analytics on some of this stuff, guys. I don't see that. But it doesn't mean that none of these guys can't develop into being good football players. So I'm trying to walk a fine line here, guys. I mean, you can't say definitive statements. You just can't. So let's talk about passes under and over 2.5 seconds and how this class rates. Now, I will tell you that the guy who threw the least amount of throws over 2.5 seconds, so this guy basically had a 64% marker in terms of getting the ball out of his hands in under 2.5 seconds, which is a really good marker considering how many times he threw the football, which was a ton. Bailey Zapp, Western Kentucky, guys, 440 throws under 2.5 seconds, 242 throws over 2.5 seconds, 64% ratio between those two. I will warn you, at the end of this video, I'm going to get into a point about buyer beware of these numbers. There are some tomfoolery, some trickery, deception that can occur with these numbers. And I'll teach you guys how to look at this on your own and know if you're being a little fooled by these underlying numbers. I'll teach you guys a little trick here. Number 7, Desmond Ritter. So out of the 40 quarterbacks, 7th guy is Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter, I think, is a little bit of an undervalued player in this draft class. 245 passes under 2.5 seconds. 141 passes over 2.5 seconds. Works its way out to a 63.3% ratio between those two. Number 10, Carson Strong. 311 passes under 2.5 seconds. 224 passes over 2.5 seconds. 59% ratio. Those three in particular, well, let me give you one more. Matt Carell, number 13. 222 under 2.5 seconds. 170 over 2.5 seconds. A 57% ratio. Those 4 players, Bailey Zapp, Desmond Ritter, Carson Strong, and Matt Carell in particular, I do think if you're looking at a guy that, you feel somewhat confident has played in systems where they prioritize getting the football out of the quarterback's hands, getting through, progressions and reads faster, sure, I think it's there. But I do think that you have to be a little buyer beware here. Make sure that you're seeing NFL level progressions, right? Because when I see drastically crazy numbers, my first instinct is that they're not going through a lot of 3-read progressions at these markers and these rates that we're seeing. I would say be careful and make sure you're not getting a lot of designed stuff from the coaching staff on a 1-read or, high-low 2-read concept or a flood concept even on the 3 reads, where you got a flood concept that makes it kind of a really easy read for the quarterback. I always tell people just be a little, concerned with that. Like, just because a guy has a really good marker in that doesn't necessarily mean it's as advertised when it comes to reading the defenses. All right, the next guy's up on this list. Number 19 out of 40 quarterbacks. Sam Howell, 183 of 164. 183 under 2.5 seconds. 164 over 2.5 seconds, 52% ratio. Decent ratio, about what you'd expect from an NFL quarterback, right? I would say between 48 and 52% is probably what you'd expect most guys to be. Number 21, Liberty's Malik Willis, 173 passes under 2.5 seconds, 166 passes over 2.5 seconds. Good ratio for this young man, 51%. Still got to work on that getting sacked, though, guys. Over 30% pressure to sack rate. Got to work on some pocket mechanics. I can tell you that right from the jump. Next guy on the list ranks 27th out of these 40 quarterbacks I broke down. Jack Cohen, 187 under 2.5 seconds, 198 over 2.5 seconds, 49% rate. Number 30, Iowa State's Brock Purdy, 197 attempts under, 197 attempts under 2.5 seconds. My bad, guys. And then you got 210 above 2.5 seconds. So what you got here is a 48% ratio. Number 38 out of 40. And this is where Kenny Pickett concerns the crap out of me, guys. Kenny Pickett, 194 attempts under 2.5 seconds. 303 attempts over 2.5 seconds. 39%. In some ways, Kenny Pickett is by far, he's an NFL-ready quarterback. You know that he can get through 3-read progressions. You know that he can understand and read defenses. Yes, there's questions about how much he can drive the football. All those things are very true about Kenny Pickett. But with that said, I will say when you break down the underlying numbers, clearly the young man can play, but that holding the ball, when you look at Kenny Pickett's time to throw, guys, just all passing attempts, 3.19 seconds. That's kind of high. Then we talked about his number versus pressure and how long he was holding the football. Versus pressure, 4.2 seconds he's holding the football. And then we look at his passes under and over 2.5 seconds. He's, 39% ratio between under 2.5 seconds to over. There are some concerns here with Kenny Pickett, I'll be honest, but I do think he is NFL ready. I do think he's a little better than maybe some people understand, but I don't know that I would call him. I think it's premature to say that this guy is like a lock as a franchise quarterback. I don't necessarily believe that per se, not a lock. Scheme, coaching staff around him, team that's built around him. I think the conversation about Kenny Pickett is quite complex, in my opinion. And then number 40 out of 40, Skylar Thompson. Although Skylar Thompson had really good numbers versus pressure. When I look at this ratio of under and over 2.5 seconds, 78 passes under 2.5 seconds, 157 passes over 2.5 seconds, which worked out to a 33% ratio. Not ideal, guys. Certainly not ideal with any of these guys. So, on the 2021 season, how did some of these guys grade as NFL quarterbacks? I took a look at 10 guys, and you could say, Gabe, why didn't you give us more of a list? I ran out of time. I'm just going to be honest, guys. Sometimes, I got to get show notes ready, and, I got to, you know what I mean? Today, we had a delay, so I had to wait for my niece to go to school. I got to get her off to school. There's a lot of stuff going on, guys, so it takes time sometimes. So I didn't have enough time to do but 10 guys. So I tried to look at, players that are relevant to the conversation we're having, right? That are in these, 4 previous draft classes, pretty much, all right? So I had Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Davis Mills, Patrick Mahomes, Mack Jones, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Zach Wilson's numbers broken down the NFL side of this. So we're going to look at passes under and over 2.5 seconds and how these dudes rank in the NFL right now. Number 1, Joe Burrow, which is kind of interesting, right? So professionally this year, 373 throws under 2.5 seconds. Cincinnati's line's not very good. And then 253 throws over 2.5 seconds. That's a 59.5% ratio. Round that up to 60%, guys. That's freaky high. That's a really high ratio. And if you want to know, what was he in college, Steve? What was he his senior year? Let me take a look for you, and I'll find him real fast. So Joe Burrow's senior year, he was 24th out of these 40 quarterbacks. So 4 previous draft classes, his current one. He tied 24th with Mack. Him and Mack were tied 24th, but 265 under 2.5 seconds, 262 over 2.5 seconds. When you work that out to a ratio, it's 50 point blah, 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 but I just rounded that one down to 50%. 50% ratio in college, 59.5% ratio in the pros. Sometimes circumstance, scheme, playmakers, a lot of things determine that stuff, guys. Number 2, not who I would have thought. And it's a tie for number 2, but I put this person as the head of the two-way tie here because they had more passing attempts. So, number 2, Kyler Murray. There's a tie between Davis Mills and Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, 283 passes under 2.5 seconds, 232 passes over 2.5 seconds, a 55% ratio. Not what I would have thought. But to be fair, when you go look at Kyler Murray in terms of like where Kyler Murray ranks among these 40, quarterbacks I broke down in their senior year of college, he's better in terms of the ranking than what you would think. And I think that it would be easy to kind of miss out on how good Kyler Murray is. He ranked 27 out of 40 of these guys. He was tied in a 3-way tie with Jack Cohn, Deshaun Kaiser, and Kyler Murray. All right, at 27. He had 183 passes that were under 2.5 seconds, 193 passes that were above 2.5, which worked out to a 49% ratio. So, I mean, Kyler Murray is a little surprising to see him ranked statistically there. But I want to get into some deeper discussions about a few of these guys. Davis Mills, number 2, tied with Kyler Murray. He had 216 attempts under 2.5 seconds and then 176 over 2.5 seconds. Worked his way out to a 55% ratio, tied with Kyler Murray. All right. Number 4 was Patrick Mahomes, 2021 season. All right. 416 passing attempts under 2.5 seconds. 364 passing attempts over 2.5 seconds. 53.3% ratio. Number 5, Mack Jones, 278 passing attempts under 2.5 seconds. 279 passing attempts over 2.5 seconds. You see that's going to work its way out to, percentage-wise, it's going to work its way out to 50%. It's 49 point blah, 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 but you round it up to 50%. Number 6, Justin Herbert. So this is Mack Jones was the last of the guys at 50% or above, okay? Justin Herbert, 318 passing attempts under 2.5 seconds. 353 passing attempts over 2.5 seconds. 47% ratio, all right? Josh Allen, number 7, 329 passing attempts under. 329 passing attempts under 2.5 seconds. 379 passing attempts over 2.5 seconds. 46.5% ratio. Lamar Jackson, number 8, 170 passing attempts under 2.5 seconds. 208 passing attempts over 2.5 seconds. 45% ratio, guys. Number 9, Jalen Hurts, 208 passing attempts under 2.5 seconds. 265 passing attempts over 2.5 seconds. 44% ratio. And then number 10, Zach Wilson, 164 passing attempts under 2.5 seconds, 218 passing attempts over 2.5 seconds. A 43% ratio. But I promised you guys that I would give you a little insight to buyer beware. Buyer beware. Sometimes these stats can be a little deceiving, if you will. So I wrote down some numbers here, and I want to get to those, all right? I want to talk about a guy like Patrick Mahomes, right? You guys remember what I said Patrick Mahomes' number was? He ranked 4th if we only look at 2.5 second ratios, right? 416 attempts under, 364 attempts over, a 53.3% ratio. It's deceiving. He is deceiving us. Because if you looked at dropbacks, so you can't predict scrambles. There are things that happen. So when you look at all dropbacks, he has 459 actual dropbacks over 2.5 seconds, which works his way out to 52.2%. So right away, we see something happening here, which is those numbers are curtailing. And actually, he's playing above 2.5 seconds more than under it when you look at the dropbacks, the total dropbacks, and not just the passing attempts. Because the passing attempts are only telling you a singular part of the story. That's what I'm trying to tell guys. Just be careful with this stuff because, they can get you. Jalen Hurts ratio is a little tricky. It is a little lying here. He has 341 passing attempts in total. 341 dropbacks in total above 2.5 seconds, which is 61.6% ratio. Let me see another guy that kind of gets you a little bit. Josh Allen, right? 461 attempts over 2.5 seconds. Worked his way out in terms of the dropbacks, 58.1%. Lamar Jackson is probably the biggest deceiver you got to be careful of, guys. 292 attempts on this, dropbacks on the season. Those 292 dropbacks give him a 62.7% ratio. It's higher actually than Jalen Hurts. Buyer beware. You guys get what I'm saying? Buyer beware. Really filter these numbers when you see them given to you. Really pay attention to how the story could be conflicted depending upon how you're looking at things, right? Justin Herbert's another good story, right? 419 if you look at all dropbacks. 419 dropbacks, which works his way out to a 56.7% ratio. It's a little bit of a buyer beware story here. All right, guys, I appreciate you letting me go on this long conversation. Let's get to some comments, guys, and let's talk. Blaze Tald, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man? Sam Shady Sports, if we don't already have Jalen Hurts, I would totally be all over drafting Malik Willis. I love him as a prospect, but other than that, I don't think there's much business draft worthy of a first. What's up, Show Enough? How you doing, buddy? If we didn't already have, okay, sorry, man, it double posted you there, Sam Shady. Queasy, what's good, buddy? How you doing, man? What's going on, Big Birds? I'm doing well, man. I hope you are too. Red Eagle, what's up, buddy? He said, what's up, Gate? Sam Howell, Malik Willis, and Ritter seem like they would be good if they had a year to sit. It's fair. Matt Hatter said that knee is going to push Strong down in the draft. He has his cartilage replaced in his knee. Yeah, it depends if it's bone on bone, but it's crazy, man. Jaylen said, can you explain what a big-time throw is? It's kind of like what Nick Sirianni and these guys are talking about. Now, when it comes to PFF, they don't give you all the details, Jaylen, because it's proprietary information of how they're grading the big-time throw. But basically, it's going to have to do with some extent the depth of the pass that's being played down the field. So, the Eagles define it, I believe, as a pass over 25 yards. I don't know how PFF grades that, to be fair, Jaylen. What's up, 2020? How you doing, man? Willis is 9 months younger than Hurts. How is he still young? I mean, to me, Matt Hatter, that's pretty dang young. Superhero 18 said, when you break down these quarterbacks, it does sound like Hurts should be our guy and to just develop him. And I'd use a third or fourth rounder or later pick on a project quarterback. Matt Hatter said, no Bryce Young or Stout. That who we should draft if Hurts doesn't work out next year. Ritter could be a steal, especially in the second or third round. 2020 said Pickett is the best in my opinion, but he has 8 plus 8.25 inch hands. That's really small. All the talk about Burrow was small hands, but at least his hands were 9 inches. Your thoughts, Gates? The size matter. Oh boy, that's an awkward conversation. 2020. Yes and no. It matters in inclement weather. It does. He wears a glove, which gives him more, I don't know, great word here, traction on the ball, more grip possibility on the football. I will say that he had his chance for scouts to really turn their nose at him. And that UNC game against Sam Howell was in inclement weather. It was bad weather, a really rainy football game. And he didn't play bad. I mean, he's playing out in Pittsburgh where, the weather's not the greatest in Pittsburgh. So, I mean, it's hard to say. Could it become a concern? Sure. I mean, let's not forget why I'm not saying that the deflate gate is a true story, guys. I'm not even weighing in on that crap. But what I am saying is let's not forget that the reason Tom Brady asked for balls to be deflated was due to the size of his hands. What's up, L. Betty said Desmond Ritter going to be second best quarterback in this draft. Jeff Murray said, you're a good read of quarterback talent. Be honest about Hurts. He really doesn't have it and probably will never. Can't read a defense, can't pass with accuracy, not our future. I think it's too premature for that, Jeff. What's up, NFC East Beast? He said, good morning, Gates. Gorillas. I don't see any quarterback in the 2019 draft that I thought were first-round draft picks either. Then Murray went first, Jones 6th, and Haskins 15th. I would expect something similar. That's a completely separate conversation, NFC East Beast, and you got a point that, just because a guy probably isn't one of the 32 best players in a draft class doesn't mean that he won't be one of the first 32 picks made. I mean, that is a very fair point, man. If Ritter falls, get him. Michael said none of these quarterbacks coming out have the pedigree nor the skill to supplant Hurts in Philly. People keep saying Willis, but if you put Jaylen on an FCS team, he looked like the second coming of Vic too, shaking my head. I think it works both ways, though, to be fair, Michael, right? Like, on one way, when he played Power 5 schools, Malik Willis did not play well, and he's had a couple of games with 3 interceptions. Like, he's definitely got a ways to go in terms of reading coverage and how to play under pressure. I mean, he's got some growth there. I'm not saying he will or won't achieve it. With that said, I think it works both ways to where, like, yeah, all that's true, but also at the end of the day, he's playing a Power 5 conference school with Liberty. That team is drastically outmatched. I mean, Willis is clearly the best player on that football team. What's up, Blaze Tail? Elbet said y'all Hurts haters would probably prefer Mark Bulger over Steve McNair. I'm not going to speak for other people, man. Morning, what's up, Vester? Willis has less passing touchdowns, but dang near the same amount of INTs as Jaylen coming out of college. Playing against lesser competition, people are understating how good of a quarterback Jaylen is. Shonoff said, Michael Irvin, you just compared the struggle of a college quarterback to a pro quarterback and then followed it up saying, understand how good Jaylen is. That doesn't help Jaylen's case. Why drafted a project quarterback? Freestyle Yaj, I think some of you guys are misunderstanding the point of these videos. The point of these videos is not to say the Eagles should or should not draft a college quarterback. Guys, I'm a quarterback. I scout quarterbacks. I coach quarterbacks. This is what I do. I do this every draft class. It's got nothing to do with what my personal beliefs are, what the Eagles should do. Michael Irvin said, read my entire statement. I compared their college performances. Willis doesn't have the skill nor pedigree to supplant Hurts in our offense. I don't know, man. Those are some pretty definitive statements, Michael. I'm not going to say either way. 2020 said, Hurts hasn't looked great. But the other side to this is all the other young quarterbacks, Burrow, Adams, Herbert, etc., all have 4 weapons deep at wide receiver. Lawrence and Wilson, who don't have good wide receivers, looked poor. That's a pretty good point, 2020. And that's something I would bring up here is that I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the idea of surrounding quarterbacks with talent because, look, man, Josh Allen he is special in some ways, guys. But let's call a spade a spade. Josh Allen was basuda before they went out and drafted Gabriel Davis and then also traded for, Stephon Diggs. He wasn't the same guy. Let's call a spade a spade. Like, clearly putting talent around Josh Allen allowed him to actually showcase the talent he has as a quarterback. So I do think there's an argument for you got to get talent around him. And then if that talent, you go out there and you made an earnest effort to put dudes out there that can play and you're getting similar results, then I think it is time to move on. Like, then I agree. Like, the proof would be in the pudding at that point. You'd have to move on. But that's evident already. Jeff said, what do you think Smith's numbers would have been with Burrow's? I don't know, man. I don't like playing hypothetical games like that, dude. I have no clue. He said, yeah, I'm still in the live stream. I was confused if it was over. No. B-Man said, would you trade for Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson in place of keeping Hurts and our draft picks to round out the team? No, absolutely not. I wouldn't do that. I think that would be the worst decision the Eagles could do. Number one, Deshaun Watson's entirely too expensive in the contract, even though we don't have to pay although we only really have to pay any incentive-based money that kicks in, such as like roster bonuses and that stuff, and then the base. It's still very expensive for him. Although all the prorated money, that's on Houston to pay. But number two, the legal situation with him, I'm not going anywhere near that young man until that gets cleared up. I'm not saying he's guilty of what he's being, charged of. I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to get myself involved in that situation, to be honest, B-Man, but I'm not touching that guy right now. Pause. That didn't come out right. Past that, Russell Wilson, yeah, I mean, both these guys are better than Jalen Hurts. There's no doubt about it. But the issue is that, in my opinion, the underlying skill set of this offense still isn't there. I mean, does this team still have pieces? Yes, Dallas Goedert can play, right? This offensive line is very good. I do think that Smith and Quez are pretty good at receiver. But I still think you're still missing some components here. It would be about the value you're going to give up for that kind of guy, B-Man. Like, what are you getting and what are you still able to keep? And what could this team do to not only get another weapon, to bring in this offense to actually help kind of get it clicking, but also what can we do defensively with a defensive line that is aging and needs desperately youth and talent on that D line? We're still missing an impact linebacker. We have absolute question marks at the safety position. And we're less than certain for the long-term future at corner. I just think this team is too far away to be playing around in the quarterback market like that. Preset Gates, I didn't know you were a quarterback coach. Once my son is of age, I will send him down to North Carolina for passing school. Shonuff said, after watching the Senior Bowl, it's safe to say that moves will be made for Russ and Rodgers. Nothing promising coming out of the draft. Yeah, somebody's probably going to take a shot, guys. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't know who it'll be. It's hard to say. I mean, you got to kind of look at whose rosters are built around an opportunity to win games with a quarterback. I think Denver is all the way there minus the quarterback. I think they got pretty good receiving talent at Denver. I think they got the pieces of a good defense. I don't know if they have the draft capital, though. That's the thing you look at with Denver is I don't know what their pick status is. I mean, obviously they have a decent pick for the 2022 draft. I don't know where it lies currently, but what's that look like, and how interested would a team be to get your 2022 draft, your 3 and your 4, if they're looking for 3 first? You know what I mean? Like, it's stuff like that I can't project, guys. Like, it's hard to say, sure enough. I don't know where they would be in that. Dre said, yo, always look forward to your vids, coach. My question is, I understand that Malik Willis might have a better arm than Jaylen, but what would be the point? Aren't they practically the same skill type? Yes and no. I mean, there's some similarities there, Dre. And I'm not advocating that the Eagles should take Malik Willis. I'm just evaluating the draft class, Dre. This is not an advocation for any player to be drafted at the quarterback position. Sure, they have similar skill sets. I would say Malik Willis is further behind Jaylen right now in terms of reading defenses. But I will say that if you look at some of the underlying numbers, he has shown the ability to get the ball out of his hands a little faster at the college level compared to Jalen Hurts in a similar situation at the college level. That part is kind of in the underlying numbers there. He's got the better arm, sure. I don't think Jalen Hurts lacks arm talent, though. I just think he's got some issues with his throwing mechanics that got to get ironed out. With that said, with Malik Willis, my fear is that you're talking about Liberty. There's going to be a massive jump from Liberty to the NFL. And he's already showing you that he struggles versus pressure. So, like, how long are you going to have to sit a guy like Malik Willis? I said this and people try to come after me. Now that you notice that they're quiet when they see the numbers. When I told you guys I didn't think Malik Willis would be ready to start year 1. And then everyone was like, why would you say that? Why would you say that? And then I gave them the numbers and, like, you don't hear it anymore. I like Malik Willis. I think there's talent there. I really do, Dre. But I also don't think that's a dude that you play year 1. I mean, maybe the back half of year 1, like, if you're already on a team and they're not doing that well and you might as well give the young guy some playing time, sure. But I wouldn't start him. I don't think he's quite ready for that, man. Jeff said, what would you give up for DK? Hard to say, man. I mean, I don't know. It's not a matter what I would give up, Jeff. It's a matter of what Seattle's willing to take for him. If I had to take a wild guess, you're not getting DK for less than a first-round pick, to be quite honest. Gates, do you think that quarterbacks coming out in 2023 are better than the quarterbacks you listed? I can't say that in good faith, Mad Hatter, because I don't know. Number one, we don't know who really is coming out yet, right? I mean, it's premature to say who will or won't declare for the draft. So I don't know. Do I think that Bryce Young and a few of these other guys maybe are going to have some better film? Possibly. But I don't know that it's all hypothetical, Mad Hatter, until they declare, you know what I mean? So, like, I'd be basing this upon a hypothetical scenario in which they declare. Now, as certain guys declare, is the 23 draft going to be better? Sure. I think there's a possibility. But until it happens, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all theory-based, man. He said if the Titans get Rodgers or Wilson, look out. Yeah, I mean, look, you would look to trade an NFC guy probably over to the AFC. That would probably make the most sense. I mean, look, I like the receiving core a lot. Julio Jones, when healthy, is still a good football player. A.J. Brown, I still think is one of the most underrated guys in the NFL. That dude he's such a physical receiver, man. I mean, that guy you talk about dragging people. Like A.J. Brown I would love to have a guy like that on the Philly, man. Put that dude as your X. Put him as your tall slot. And the dude can erase mistakes. You know that he can take a subpar quarterback. And I'm not calling Jalen Hurts subpar quarterback, guys. I'm saying that we know definitively he can take a subpar quarterback and make them better. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind it. Cree said there will be at least 3 quarterbacks taken in the upcoming draft. Although, in terms of the entire draft, Cree, there'll be far more than 3 taken. I think that, in my opinion, the one thing I can say definitively I feel confident in is that this is a very good draft for future bridge quarterbacks, bridge starters, and really high quality, like, backup quarterbacks. I mean, look, Bailey Zapp's got some things to work on. There's no doubt about it. But let me just give you guys an indication on a guy like Bailey Zapp and, like, what he is. Like, I really love the underlying numbers on Bailey Zapp and what he is. I mean, he's not good versus pressure, right? We read those numbers for you. Bailey Zapp's got to grow as a young guy versus pressure. He was 30th out of 40 quarterbacks that we graded. He was 31 of 168, 45.6% completion rate, 382, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 4 big-time throws, 3 turnover-worthy passes, an 8.5 average depth of target, 18 throwaways, 15 sacks, 16.5% pressure to sack rate, very good pressure to sack rate, 3.89 time to throw. Bailey Zapp is a fast processing quarterback, but that number versus pressure's got to get better at the next level. 8 scrambles, 67.2 NFL passer rating versus pressure. But then, like we talked about it, and you can see this in the Senior Bowl if you really watch Bailey Zapp and what he did. Bailey Zapp gets the football out of his hands, man. That guy threw a lot of passes, 440 passes. 440 passes under 2.5 seconds, 242 over. I mean, you break those numbers down, guys. We're talking about almost 700 passes in college. 64% ratio in terms of 2.5, under 2.5 to over 2.5. I will say with Bailey Zapp, I mean, he's a fast processing quarterback. He gets the ball out of his hands. I'm going to give you a name that's lower tier that he reminds me of. You guys remember Davis Webb? He reminds me a lot of Davis Webb. Just to kind of like look at Davis Webb's numbers from college, guys. 396 of 224. So 396 passes under 2.5 seconds. 224 over 2.5 seconds. 64% ratio there. He's very similar to Davis Webb. I have some of Davis Webb's other numbers written down, but I got to filter through and find them, guys, because I didn't expect that we'd be talking a lot of Davis Webb today. But he was 28th versus pressure. So Bailey Zapp ranked 30th coming out. Davis Webb ranked 28th coming out versus pressure. 51 of 121, 35.3% completion rate, very low completion rate. But look at this, 1,186 yards versus pressure, 18 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Average depth of target, 12 yards, 13 throwaways, 14 sacks, a 10.3 pressure to sack rate. Davis Webb really didn't get sacked that much, guys, to be honest. 7 big-time throws, 5 turnover-worthy passes. I will say a lot of his touchdowns weren't coming off of like crazy plays down the field. He just beat defenses. He replaced the defender with the football, and it won. It won him some games that way. A 60.9 independent PFF grade for him. 3.09 time to throw. I will say Davis Webb, you can see versus pressure, he still got the ball out fast. As I was saying, replacing the defender with the football. He was pretty good at doing that in college. Only 1 scramble, so he wasn't much of a guy that was going to leave the pocket on you. A 68.9 NFL passer rating. I do think that there is some comps there to Davis Webb and Bailey Zapp. And I think Bailey Zapp could be a really, really good example of a fairly high-quality backup quarterback in the league. I don't want to make the outlandish claim that you're looking at a potential, next-tier guy when it comes to a Gardner Minshew type, because I don't necessarily think that's completely true, but I can see some similarities in their games, and I've seen a lot of people comp that, to be quite honest. 2020 said exactly, Coach. I think Kyler Murray was looking like MVP, then Hopkins got injured, and they lost 5 of 6 games after. Today's football, it's arms race to load your team with wide receiver weapons. Would you give a first-rounder for DK? Depends. So here's the thing, Herbert Timms. It depends upon what we do in free agency. I'm not going to, trade away first-round picks just for anybody. I need to make sure that we're taking care of other things like safety or linebacker that could potentially be used in the draft. But if you've already taken care of something like that, like a linebacker or a safety in free agency, so now I don't have to worry about necessarily trying to sign a wide receiver in free agency, and I can just acquire a guy that I think DK he's either on his second contract or the very end of his first contract. So I'd have to see the underlying numbers behind DK's contract, but for the player value, yes, Herbert. I probably would give you a first round. I probably would give him a first round pick for DK. Now, I'd probably rather it be that 19th pick, not the 15th or 16th pick personally. But yeah, I mean, it'd be a battle over the valuation that people get. Jeff Murphy said, any running backs you would take in round 2? Yes, I mean, there's Jeff. If you go back to last week, there's a video early in the week where I talked about running backs, where we did a live stream, and I broke down all the running backs in this class. Elbet said Dillard in 51 plus future conditional second or third for DK. I don't hate that one, but I wouldn't want to really lose my 51st pick unless I could find a way of gaining back an additional second. But to be fair with it, Elbet, if you can gain a guy like DK Metcalf for a second, which obviously he was selected in the second round himself, yeah, I'd probably make the deal. I'm not crazy about giving away second round picks, but For DK Metcalf, obviously, you'd make an exception there. 2020 said, by wide receiver weapons, I mean, if you can get a wide receiver 1, then you need 3 wide receivers who are at least surefire wide receiver 2s. Cree said, in the first round? Cree, I think I missed. Hang on. Oh, okay. Taken in the first round. Possibly. I don't know, Cree. It's hard to say, but I do think it's a possibility. I don't know if this is the last live stream for this year, but I'm so sorry I have to go. Bye. It's all good, Blaze Tailed. I highly doubt it'll be my last live stream for the year, buddy. Cree said, I meant that there will be at least 3 quarterbacks. Yeah, I got you, man. The Eagles trade a first round, 22 for a first round in 23, just in case they need to draft Hurts replacement. But if they don't draft a quarterback, what other positions are deep that we could draft? So there's a couple ways of looking at this, gentlemen, and understand I'm not advocating for either thing, Gambling Hippie and everybody in the chat. You can burn the ships. So you're locked in. Like, you got to win now, and you've got to develop your talent. You can burn the ships by trading away a first-round pick to go get a guy like DK Metcalf, or insert another, guy that you think clearly could be a number 1, or, Robin to the Batman of Devontae Smith. I mean, you can burn the ships by trading a number 1 or second-round pick, right? So you take away some of your leverage to then get back into, trade some of your picks for 23's draft leverage and then go get a guy. But I will tell you this. It's not truly burning the ships, because we saw what Howie did to go get Carson. Howie knows how to manipulate and trade guys and go get value to move up if a team isn't willing to take a player and he values them. So it's not really burning the ships, but for the sake of the conversation, we could burn the ships to where you trade away a first-round pick for a cornerback or a safety or wide receiver or insert position group. To me, that would be burning the ship. Or the other way is you could hedge your bet, which is what Gambling Hippie, what you're talking about, was hedging your bet, which is taking one of those 3 first-round picks in 22 and converting it into an additional 2023 first-round pick to hedge your bet with Jalen Hurts. There's just competing theories, right? I don't know which one they're going to do, guys. I mean, that's not really something I can tell you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have that kind of knowledge. I don't get a chance to talk to the front office like that, but I would just pay attention to the moves, because the moves will tell you. If you start trading away first or second-round picks to go acquire a wide receiver, to me, that's kind of like saying you're burning the bridge, or you're burning the ships in order to go all in on Jalen Hurts and to get him talent around him and see what you got there. Or you can hedge your bet by taking one of those 22 draft picks and putting it into 2023. So you're hedging that bet in case you need to get a quarterback the following year. I can't predict what they're going to do, but those are 2 very clear possibilities of what could happen. Do you think Zap drops to the 3rd round? Yeah, I think he'll be a 3rd round or later, Matt Hatter, to be honest. I don't think he has enough arm talent to be like a 2nd-round pick personally. But, crazier things have happened, Matt Hatter. I mean, people get kind of crazy around draft time, so I'm not going to say like a definitive statement on that. But I would expect he'd be 3rd round or later. Jeremiah said DK is probably worth a first, but I wouldn't trade for him when there are free agents that give you the same or better production. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a matter of what's the contract, Jeremiah. It's the same kind of conversation you have with Calvin Ridley, right? Which is Calvin Ridley, you get him for his 5th-year option at like $11 million, which is very, very reasonable for Calvin Ridley. But can you endear him to the city to get him under contract for a second contract? If you make that trade and you trade away a pick to go get him, I'd have to look at DK's contract and see the same thing. Now, I think the counter argument, Jeremiah, would be, can the Philadelphia Eagles go get a guy like, I'm sorry, guys, I'm trying to think off the top of my head here, but like a Mike Williams or, someone like that gives you a lot of, big playability and a big frame. Mike Williams is a very good versus man coverage. He's a really good route runner versus man coverage. Good contested catch guy. We knew that about him coming out of Clemson. He was a really good contested catch guy. I don't know. I mean, it's a matter of can you get that guy under contract in free agency, and how much money will it cost you? Is there going to be a rush on a guy like Mike Williams, or are other teams going to really get involved and inflate the value of the player? I really don't know, Jeremiah, but certainly worth, conversation and talking about. And you can also go the value route, right? DJ Shark, and we talked about Zach Pascal having his, his career numbers came underneath this coaching staff that we have here in Philly. So maybe he would want to come here for low value, to where you're still looking in the draft to add a guy, but you also have Zach Pascal in your back pocket to get better play. Because let's be real, Zach Pascal right now is producing more at the NFL level than Jalen Reagor is. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. Cedric Wilson from Dallas. I know some of you guys hate Dallas players. I get it. Chris Godwin. Is Chris Godwin's market going to be deflated by the ACL injury? I don't know. Allen Robinson would be a dream, but I don't know that the Eagles can afford him if he actually really hits the free agency market. I mean, those are really questions we have to consider because, there's always an opportunity cost. For every action we take, such as like signing a free agent wide receiver, it does take you out of the sweepstakes for other high caliber players, right? It would be really hard to envision us signing like, say, Marcus Williams from the Saints at safety and Allen Robinson, a wide receiver from the Bears. I'm not saying, hey, and Howie, I trust when it comes to the contracts and fudging numbers to make it work. But I would also say that I'm hesitant to necessarily believe you could grab two high-quality players like that and pluck them out of this particular free agency class. So, you got to look at the opportunity cost of that stuff. 2020 said, I don't know, Jeremiah. DK is the closest thing to a number one receiver we can get. Williams, Robinson are wide receiver twos, not wide receiver ones. I think if you plug them in here, they could. I don't know about Robinson being a wide receiver two 2020. I think Allen Robinson's a clear-cut wide receiver one. I do think there's an argument about would Mike Williams be the one or the two. I think it would be very interesting dynamic between Mike Williams and, Devontae Smith. Mike Williams is not a slouch. That's a very good football player. John Martin from NCAA could be a sleeper running back if he's in this draft, coach. Hey, I'm all for NCAA players. I have to look it up and see. Actually, I haven't had it. I need to get in touch with the coaching staff down there and talk to them about a few guys. Jeremiah said Godwin is the best available. Just don't know how he'll return after injury. It's a big question mark, right? Do you think Bailey Zapp has a better arm than Minshew? Questionable, Red Eagle. I don't know. I think they're pretty close. I think it's pretty similar. I do think that Bailey Zapp lacks a little bit of arm talent. Nope. Jeremiah said, I like DK, but why am I giving up assets when there are guys that can give me 900 yards on average? I think it depends upon like the contract nature, Jeremiah. So, you're trading a first round pick or a second round pick in a player like Dillard, however you want to structure said deal. So that way you're controlling, that asset that can play in the league, right? That's why you're doing it, and you're getting him at a favorable contract, assuming he's not already on a second contract. I really don't know that part, Jeremiah. I'd really have to actually look to see the contract value, to be quite honest. But with that said, it's about controlling that, where you don't know what Chris Godwin's market's going to turn into. We don't know what Mike Williams' market's going to turn into. We don't know what Allen Robinson's market's going to turn into. I would say the Eagles would do themselves justice by reaching out to those guys at the initial free agency period, seeing if the numbers are not astronomical. But if they are astronomical, I think it's smart to just kind of wait it out and see which one of those guys might particularly fall to like phase 2 of free agency. You're not going to get them like in June per se. I don't think that's going to happen, but you might get it past the initial first wave of free agency and that second wave to where the numbers come back down a little bit. You're still going to pay a ton though, guys. I definitely think that it's very possible you're going to pay a lot more for a free agent than you're going to pay for a guy that you can acquire the rights to. Going to get Metcalf wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, Sam. I hear you. Jeff said, why are you not on the NFL coaching staff? I'm analytical, and I love the way you think. What do you do for a living? What else? Whatever it is, you're a natural. Love to watch how your mind works. I appreciate that, Jeff. I mean, there's a lot of politics involved in college and NFL coaching, even in high school, to be honest with you. You have to know people to get into the NFL, guys. And you also have to start off at the bottom rung there. You got to start off as pretty much going to be one of these coaching assistants. So it's really difficult to do that. Your best bet to get into the NFL, guys, is to honestly get linked up through an internship that the NFL will run, get your name in the drawing and in the race for that. It's a grind, though, guys. The NFL is not like a 9 to 5 and you go home, guys. It's definitely a grind. You're going to spend a lot of your time. 2020 said Godwin and DK are really good if they're not wide receiver ones and highest and wide receiver twos. This is the kind of quality I want the Eagles to go after. I don't want Cedric Wilson or Christian Kirk. 2020, I'm not opposed to Christian Kirk, man. Christian Kirk, I think, gives you a lot of explosion. That dude beats man coverage. I would take Christian Kirk in a heartbeat in Philly. What if they do hedge and have 2 picks next year? What positions are deep? that year besides quarterback in case they don't end up drafting a new one? It's hard to say at this point, Gambling Hippie. I really don't know because they haven't necessarily we don't know everybody who's declaring. We have some perceived value. So Anderson out of Alabama, who's kind of this edge rushing linebacker. Like he's this linebacker that gives you really good pass rush ability. He's going to be very high if he keeps the kind of production he had this year, next year. Will he declare? I don't know. I would guess that he doesn't have too much more left to prove in college. I would declare if I was that young man, if he has even a similar year to what he had this past year. DJ Shark is a free agent next year. DJ Shark's free agent this year, man. Yeah, I wouldn't trade for Ridley either unless all my options are exhausted. I've been wanting Godwin forever. He's the closest thing to missing on Jefferson. He said, that's why I'm taking Treylon Burks with the first. I like Treylon Burks. A guy that can, honestly, he's more of a slot receiver. He played a ton of slot in college. But he's such a good yak receiver, yards after the catch guy. I mean, his yak numbers are phenomenal from the college game. I honestly like Treylon Burks a lot. And I think he can play outside as an X if you need him to. I think he would be a great compliment to if you're really planning on elevating Quez Watkins to that next level and giving him that, hey, look, he's earned it. He's above Rager. He's playing outside for us or inside, depending on how we want to do this. Then you got Devontae Smith. You got Treylon Burks. I mean, I don't hate it, man. I think all three of those guys kind of complement each other. And I think all three of those guys have the ability to play inside, outside, field side boundary. I think they can play all three alignments from the wide receiver position, to be quite honest. Sam said, from what I've heard, Allen Robinson is most likely out in Chicago. It sounds like they're going to shake up the wide receiver position pretty severely. Hey, Rob is coming off it. Allen Robinson, I think it messed up what you were saying there. He's coming off a bad year too. Hey, Rob, I don't know. That one messed me up, Sam. I think he was injured, Sam, to be honest. I think he missed some games due to injury, if I'm not mistaken. Sam said, I agree with you said about not being able to get a premier player if we do get Allen Robinson. Most likely we're looking at a mid-tier free agent for safety at best. Yeah, that's the hard part, right? Is I definitely think there's still guys that you can look. I mean, Cincinnati did a good job of taking those mid-tier guys and putting themselves in the playoffs and combining that with solid draft classes. So I do think there's a model for doing that. But, Reed from the Texans, he didn't have a very good statistical year. I mean, if you look at the analytics behind Reed's play, it's not that great. But that's a 4.3, 4.4 40 guy at safety. Pairing him with, a guy like Marcus Epps. I mean, the amount of talent and athleticism you would have at safety. I don't know how good it would be, guys, but man, it'd be pretty cool to watch because that's two really athletic safeties. We're talking proven guys here. What did I miss, Akam? Oh, no. I think Akkam's playing off of what I said earlier, though, Jeremiah. I think he's talking about where I talked about, depending on how you view it, whether you take a college wide receiver, if you go into free agency or if you trade for a guy. I think he's just saying there's many ways to gain an outcome. Matt Carroll from Ole Miss, would you say he's a better prospect than Jalen Hurts? Dante, I would say no. It's too inconclusive. Do I think he's got better arm talent than Jalen Hurts? Probably. But I wouldn't say he's a better prospect. He can't read. He is far behind Jalen Hurts at reading defenses right now. He's very much a one-read quarterback, although he gets the ball out of his hands fast. So in the design stuff they get for him, he gets the ball out, but he crumbles versus pressure. It's not good. Do I think that if he got it? See, here's the thing. We're talking about if guys can get it together eventually. If guys got it together eventually, yeah, Matt Corral has a lot of talent, man. He's a really good thrower of the football. He's got really good arm strength. He's not seeing coverage well enough, and he's even behind Hurts in that aspect of things. I mean, just to give you the numbers real quick, Dante, because I don't know if you were here when we were talking about it earlier, but if you break it down, Matt Carell of the 40 quarterbacks I graded. So I went from rounds 1 through 3 from the 2017 through the 2020 draft, and then this 10 guys from this current draft class in 2022. Matt Corral was 38 out of 40 versus pressure. It was 36 to 84, 42.9% completion rate, 445 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a 37 independent passing grade given to him by PFF. 3 big-time throws, 6 turnover-worthy passes, an 8.8 average depth of target. Throwaways 15, 21 sacks, pressure to sack rate 15.4. It's a pretty good pressure to sack rate, to be fair. 3.5 time to throw. When you look at college quarterbacks, like I said, guys, the pros that get you killed. In college, that's not a bad number. It's not. He does, it's very scripted for what he's supposed to do in that offense, but he makes mistakes, guys. A 48 NFL passer rating versus pressure. 29 scrambles. He gives you mobility. He can run. He's not seeing coverage well enough, guys. 4 interceptions, 6 turnover-worthy passes. I don't know, guys. I still think Matt Corral has a long way to go. I mean, he's 38th out of 40 in terms of the passer rating versus pressure. I still think there's a lot of room of growth for Matt Corral, at the NFL level. Now, what I will say is he's more definitive in his decision-making. So, when you look at a guy like Jalen Hurts played very well versus pressure. He was the 6th-ranked guy out of these 40 guys. He was 56 and 103, 54.4% completion rate versus pressure at Oklahoma, 913 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 68.5 independent grade from PFF. 3 big-time throws. That's the thing I had problems with Jalen Hurts is I still feel like versus pressure, he doesn't take advantage of the defense. And I still think that's a fair criticism even today of Jalen Hurts. 5 turnover-worthy passes, an average depth of target of 11.7 yards. He pushes the ball down the field a little bit more. 22 sacks, a pressure-to-sack rate of 14.5%. Him and Corral both give you that ability to get out of trouble. 4.23 time to throw. So that's where I think you can make a nuanced point about Matt Corral versus Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts analytically had a much better performance of burst pressure, but held the ball entirely too long at 4.23 seconds. That's Matt Corral 3.5 is still too long for the NFL, but Matt Corral, in terms of the idea of progressing him in terms of holding the ball versus pressure, there's a lot less to do there. But I think the problem you run into with a guy like Matt Corral and Bailey Zapp and a few of these guys that, get the ball in their hands quickly is that some of their numbers are not realistic to 3-read progressions. These seem a lot like very scripted and designed 1 reads, very scripted and designed high-low or low-high reads, and then maybe a flood concept at best if they're doing a 3-read progression. So I think you got to be careful with some of those numbers. Me personally, no, I don't think Matt Corral at this stage coming out of college was as advanced as Jalen was. That doesn't mean he won't turn out to be better, guys. That's things I can't predict, man. A lot of that has to do with the scheme, the coaching staff, the fit for the player, the talent they put around the guy. There's some things you just can't predict. Occam said, proven guys will be costly, though. That's my point. They have a few holes to fill. Coach, it looks like George Pickens will be there in the round 2 when the Eagles select. Your thoughts on pairing him with either a Robinson, Godwin, Williams, or free agent? I would love that and keep all 3 round 1 picks. I like George Pickens. I think the underlying talent's there, but I don't think he's a very good route runner, to be honest, 2020. With that said, I honestly think George Pickens might be there in the 3rd round. To be quite honest, I don't think he's going in the 2nd round. Some of the underlying analytics on him aren't quite as impressive. We'll see. I mean, it's hard to say that. Still never answered the question, what do you do? Very impressive. In terms of a career, guys, I mean, I'm a former teacher, guys. I still substitute teach on times, but I don't do that anymore because I stopped coaching. In terms of that, guys, I have a resale business. Jeremiah Butler said, you get what you pay for, and we're paying for bad drafting. So that's true to an extent, man. Is quality, I think you pair him up with Pickens in round 2 and then really moves the needle for the offense to challenge Dallas. What's up, One Above All? How you doing, buddy? Any chance you peeped any of the guys in the Shrine Bowl for some of those sleeper all-stars? Not yet. I mean, I'll try to take a look at the Shrine Bowl and see if I can get some film. I will say I've found it a little complex, even breaking down the Senior Bowl a little bit, just because the issue I'm having with the Senior Bowl is that the independent angles you get from people who are there filming, some are better than others. So sometimes, like, you get way better, angles on Malik Willis than, you get on Kenny Pickett. And then if I go to the TV coverage, I might only get a handful of snaps. So I don't get enough material to break down. So, like, I'll have to see. I'll have to take a look and see. One Above All. Occam said, but they have what, $21 million in cap space. So you want a veteran wide receiver and kids at all the other positions. It isn't Madden. Give quarterback a straight contract, $3 million with no incentives except if we get into the Super Bowl and he's an All-Pro, he gets another $1 million. Bingo. I'm confused on the contract structure there, Ken, and what you mean. Occam said, yes, I am. I was late to the conversation. There are different ways to get a wide receiver. Vets will require more money. Dudes, we can't go into the 22 season with Smith and Watkins and a fourth-round wide receiver. This is a huge need to upgrade wide receiver. Rams had Cooper Kupp and the league leader and got Odell Beckham. I like some of the quarterbacks more after the last game, but I wouldn't go for a quarterback. So why do you have to only sign one? I'd get it that Howie hasn't done well, but you keep trying. I think I missed the context of that, Occam Razor. I think you're responding to 2020. I don't know. I'd have to see the full context here, guys. The Eagles have to get away from having to kick the can down the road when it comes to the cap. Well, yes and no, Occam. I mean, you look at Green Bay. Green Bay is not a proponent of kicking the can down the road, and look how much trouble they're in this year with the cap space. Kicking the can down the road is a strategy. And the only reason that Howie got caught so desperately last season by doing that is because of the decreasing in attendance and then in TV revenue, the contract not kicking in at the exact moment they wanted it to kick in. It kind of took down, we only got 182.5 in terms of what the cap mandate was from the league. And then you can roll your money and, all those type of things from the previous year. It's a matter of keeping up with the pace of that. I do think that you have a point when you look at veteran players and when you should separate. I do think that there's a time and a place to kick the can down the road on a contract, but I do think that right now we got ourselves in a little bit of a pickle with some of the veterans. So I think the way we went after it was probably in good faith or with no malice towards a veteran player to tell them that they're important to the city, but we kind of got caught doing it at the same time. Can we get a quarterback cheap right now? I wouldn't wait too long. We can get a quarterback cheap right now. I wouldn't wait too long. Maybe. I mean, it depends. It depends on the player you're looking for, Ken. I mean, they traded for Minshew to get control of a rookie contract on a guy that had playing experience. I mean, look. I mean, Joe Flacco cost us around $3.5 million or so. Hard to say, man. I mean, it really depends upon what they want to do. But if I have to pick a vet, I like Robinson and Kirk. I thought that read Pickett. I'm good with Quez at 3. I think that is truly a solid corpse if Quez is your third best wide receiver. On a side note, keep the beard. The stash only is creepy. That was for Minshew Mania, man. Jordan Davis, defensive tackle from UGA, would fit well taking Cox's place. Dante, I know Jordan Davis very well. He played down here in Charlotte. I think there's some underlying concerns with Jordan Davis, man. He's a little overweight, and he's not quite the disruptor. He's not a free tech. He's not Fletch at all. He's more of a nose at the NFL level. Now it depends upon if they want a true nose. The Eagles are looking for a true nose, then yeah, Jordan Davis makes a ton of sense. But I do think that there are better options, Dante, than Jordan Davis at the nose tackle position. Now, we can't guarantee, you got to have a few guys on your board. But, I do think there's a couple of guys that are better. AB flipped out because of incentives. Limited incentives give him a contract of $3 million a year to play for the Eagles. Give him one incentive if he's an All-Pro and we get into the Super Bowl. Hit that like button and subscribe, amigos. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard to play the incentive game, guys. I don't want to get too far into that because it's difficult to project incentives. And we have to understand that incentives still come against your cap eventually, guys. So you have to be careful because it's hard to account for incentive, laced contracts or, where you have several incentives built into the contract. It can come back and get you in terms of your cap flexibility. So the way the Eagles like to do it is they like to entice you with a signing bonus. I think the reason they do that is the player gets an initial cash flow. They get all that money kind of up front, which I think is, they like that. They like the idea of getting all that money up front. But, on the back end of things, it means that you're prorating that contract and you're prorating a significant portion of the contract over X amount of years. So it gets you in kind of weird places when you need to extend guys and stuff like that. It can put you in kind of a weird position place from a cap standpoint, if you will. It can definitely cause some weird things. Dante said, yeah, I was thinking of Davis as a nose and Hargrave and Williams playing the 3-tech. I think Hargrave would appreciate it because, Hargrave definitely can play the nose. He did it in Pittsburgh, and I do think Hargrave's a good nose. But he wants the one gap, and he wants to rush the passer. Milton Williams definitely should be more of a 3-tech and a 5-tech. That's where he should be, in my opinion. The question is what do you do with Marlon Tuipulotu? You spent a 6th-round pick on him. He was supposed to be your guy at nose tackle for the future. But last year, at the end of last season, we didn't bring him up. We didn't call him up when we did all the call-ups. Well, I'm sorry. He was already on the roster, so he wasn't necessary to call him up. But he didn't really play. That's what I meant to say. He didn't actually play in that game. So what does that say for his future? I mean, it looked like they were higher on Marvin Wilson, to be quite honest, than Marlon Tuipulotu. So I don't know what that means, man. The Philly Talk Podcast, what's good, buddy? Mike said Lloyd or Dean. Oh, for what the defense needs more, I'd say Lloyd. Dean's a really good football player, and I'm not kicking myself if they take Dean. What's up, Caleb? How you doing, buddy? Mad Hatter said bring in Sue. Everyone wants Jordan Davis because he's big. You have to know how the player fits into the team's scheme. Yeah, that's a very important point. And I like Jordan Davis. Like I said, I know the young man. I've scouted him. Jordan Davis was a high prospect out here in North Carolina, guys. To be fair about it, the team I was scouting for, they had no shot at signing Jordan Davis. And Jordan Davis he's a big guy. He's a space eater. He definitely has a role depending on what you're doing. If you're 2-gapping, I think Jordan Davis makes a ton of sense. What I would like to see Jordan Davis, the situation I'd like to see him land in is New England. I think that would be a really good, situation there. Jeremiah said, what up, Mike? I think Marvin Wilson is better than the guy we got in the 6th round. Marlon Tuipulotu, don't get Jalen Williams started on that, man. Jalen definitely got me on that one. I got Jalen on Teron Jackson. Teron Jackson was better than what Jalen thought, and I kind of hit the nail on the head with Teron Jackson, but he definitely got me when it came to Marlon Tuipulotu because he told me right from the jump that the hand fighting thing that we were seeing on film, it was a glimpse. It was a mirage. You thought you seen it, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. He told me it was inconsistent, and there were times he was taking those swipes and missing, and he was out of place, out of leverage. I mean, he brought up some really good points that we saw kind of came true. I mean, he kind of lacked the strength to anchor in the NFL. He was getting moved off the ball. Like, I hope for the young man's sake that it works out because I was really high on that pick. I thought the Eagles did a heck of a job getting him in the 6th round. But, yeah, man, that didn't work out quite like I thought, man. Caleb said, Devin Lloyd, huh? Elbet wants Christian Harris. Athletic guy from Alabama. I like Christian Harris. He's not bad. He's a 2nd-round guy. Matt Hatter followed that up by saying taking Harris in the 2nd round. Perrion Winfrey or Travis Jones in the 3rd. Do you think they're going to make it that far, Red Eagle? Those guys seem like 2nd-round picks to me, both of them. I like both of those guys, to be honest, Red Eagle. I think Perrion Winfrey's his initial pass rush move is pretty good. Perrion Winfrey's got a little pass rush ability to him. Travis Jones I like a lot. As a nose tackle that can give you some pass rush ability, along with just being stout and being able to play the run. I really like Travis Jones a lot out of UConn, Red Eagle. I'm really high on Travis Jones. George Pickens in round 3, that's a huge take, Coach. Makes me want to reevaluate my Madden roster. That's what it looks like to me, man. When you look at the underlying numbers and, like, where he's at, the fact that he came off being injured. I mean, look, it only takes, the truth is 2020, it only takes one team. It only takes one team to blow an evaluation, right? I say he's a 3rd-round pick. 29 out of 32 teams agree with me. The problem is 3 teams don't agree with me, and they can take him higher. That's kind of the issue when it comes to like draft evaluations. That's why I hate doing them, but I do think there's a chance that he's more of a 3rd-round pick, to be honest. Occam said, Steve, thoughts on a 6'5" Christian Watson? Very good hands, it seems. A lot better than I thought, Occam, to be honest. I really wish I had included him in that video. I'm going to include him when I do my player profiles for the draft. He's definitely going to be on that list of guys. I really wish I would have brought him up last week when we talked about receivers. I didn't have the data ready to talk about him and discuss him. I think he's good, man. I think Christian Watson's really good. I like Tolbert a lot from South Alabama, and I like Christian Watson a lot of small school guys that are probably going to have some real good use in the NFL. I think they're going to be good. I like Christian Watson. James Cook or Zamir White. What's up, Sayson? How you doing, buddy? Oof. I don't know. I would need to see them side by side. I don't have my notebook. I have my notebook, but this is the one for quarterbacks. So I don't have that in front of me to look. When I look, I'll give you how I look at things, Sayson, from the running back position. Okay. What is your ability to break tackles? So give me your yards after contact, So let me see what you can do there. Let me see your runs over 20 yards, your runs over 15 yards and your runs over 10 yards. So what is your explosive rate ability? What is your explosive play ability? And then I want to see you in pass pro. What kind of, what can you do from a receiving standpoint? Can you catch passes? What are the type of routes you're running as a running back? I'm sorry, guys. And then what can you do in pass pro as a running back? And then I try to make assessments. Is this a 2-minute drill, 2-minute offense and, third down specialist? Is this a 3-down back? Is this a 2-down back? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'd have to see all those numbers beside each other, and I don't have that right in front of me right this second. So it's kind of hard to say. 2020 said, Coach, I know you like Ojabo, but if he's gone, would you go Karlaftis or Trayvon Walker? Or is that someone else you would take who is likely on the board? So, all right. I think Karlaftis is a really intriguing inside-outside pass rusher. 2020. I want to walk a fine line here. I question his athleticism because if you look at his ability to finish plays and get sacks, he was better his freshman year than he was any other year. The production is not as great as what I think people think about Karlaftis. He only had like 4.5 sacks last year. So I do wonder about it. Now, look, he's playing the Big Ten, and the Big Ten's got good lines. So, to be fair, sometimes your competition there matters. But I do wonder if he's going to be one of these guys that maybe isn't that splash, player. I mean, is he a guy that a good season for him is going to be like 6.5, 7 sacks? You know what I mean? I don't know, man. Solid edge defender. I mean, he can definitely play the run. He gives you inside-outside versatility. I think he's got a pretty good toolbox as a pass rusher. I just don't know I don't know about his underlying athleticism, to be honest. The other guy, this guy's Trayvon Walker from Georgia is very athletic. Similar frame. It's kind of funny. Karlaftis and Walker have very similar frames. What intrigues me about Walker is his ability to drop back in coverage as a defensive end and play like those hooks, the hook area. It's very interesting where you can get out there in the hook area in the flats and guard. Another guy that's not super productive, though, if you really look at it, this is not a super productive player in college. Now, Georgia's defense, you know what I'm saying? Like they were just so good that it's kind of hard. You know what I mean? Like it's difficult to grade some of these guys like that. I would probably say that I think Karlaftis is going to go higher in the draft. I think Walker might be the better player out of those two. I'm going to be honest with you, and I know some people don't. I think a Becty is a better player overall, to be quite honest. I think a Becty gives you a lot of ability. I mean, he may not have the same pass rush ability in terms of the toolbox. He might have the same toolbox as a guy like Karlaftis, but he's a better athlete than Karlaftis is, in my opinion. And he's been far more productive. Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, same thing. It's been far more productive. Are all the tools in the toolbox? Probably not. But it's a matter of, would you rather try to work with a guy who has a really good refined pass rush move and like he has an arsenal of moves in his toolbox, but maybe doesn't have the requisite, athleticism, but it has the motor, it just keeps coming? Or would you rather, geez, that didn't come out right. Or would you rather work with the young man who has the athleticism, but maybe needs some, refinement in terms of pass rush moves, how to beat and set up guys at the next level? It's an internal argument to have there with those guys. L. Beck said that Watson instantly upgrades from Rager. Sam said, if we pick a quarterback, it should be no more than a 4th-round pick and be used as a developmental prospect behind Minshew, I think. Dante said, Kendrick from UGA, I think he's good at corner, but I would take Sauce before him because he played well with less talent around him. Well, I mean, in terms of the total team, I agree, Dante. But Kobe Bryant, the other corner at Cincinnati, some people have these hot takes to say that Kobe Bryant's the better player. I disagree. I think Ahmad Gardner is clearly the better player, but Kobe Bryant is an NFL corner. I would not hate the Eagles going after Kobe Bryant in the second or third round. I don't know where his evaluation is going to go. I don't know where he's going to be at in the draft. Sometimes corners tend to fly off the board, but I don't hate that player at all. I think that's a really good football player on Cincinnati that doesn't get talked about a ton. Drew said, "What's up, Coach? I don't have anything of value to bring to the convo, but wanted to let you know I appreciate your grind." Thank you, Drew. I appreciate that, buddy. It's Super Saiyan. I like Abram Smith from Baylor, too, to replace Howard. Would you say our D-line is full of natural one-gappers or two-gappers? What do you think of Staley's gap and a half? I don't like gap and a half. Personally, I don't like gap and a half, Allie. And I do think that Gannon uses gap and a half at times, to be quite honest. Not a huge fan of it. I think it slows down the reaction time of the players. Obviously, that's kind of the point of it. But I think that it undervalues the importance of the pass rush. I'd rather over-pursue and have our linebackers flow to cover up the mistakes if a running back or somebody breaks free or the quarterback gets past that initial pass rush than gap and a half type things. With that said, I think that we have way more one-gap guys, although, a guy like Hargrave can play two-gap. But I think Milton Williams is a clear one-gap player. Can he two-gap on the outside as like a 4-eye or a 5? Sure. But I think he's more of a one-gap. I'll say that Javon Hargrave prefers to play in a one-gap, although he clearly can play a two-gap. Fletcher Cox is clearly a one-gap player. He does not. He hates two-gapping. So, I mean, Hassan Ridgeway could probably play two-gap or one-gap. I think he could play both for you. Obviously, he came from Indianapolis, so he was there with Eberflus. He knows how to two-gap. Hard to say. It's hard to say, man. I think we should take a good look at Jermaine Johnson on the edge. Jermaine Johnson is tough. I watched him this year a lot. I wonder how many ex-Eagles the Jags signed. It's very possible. I mean, you look at guys like Alex Singleton and some of those other guys that might actually hit the free agency market, depending on what the Eagles want to do there. I do think Alex Singleton would make a really good fourth or fifth linebacker on a team. If the Eagles want to keep him around, I'd be in favor of that if the contract makes sense. But it's very possible that some of that could happen. I think the one everyone's probably kind of thinking of is like, does Jacksonville? But Jacksonville has pretty good edge rushers, to be fair. Do they get involved with like Derek Barnett? That would be an interesting one to me. Philly Sports Talk Podcast. What's good, Gate City? How you doing, buddy? Thank you for tuning in, man. Vision said, 2020 said, great answer on the defensive end pass rush draftees. Thanks, Coach. Nah, no problem, guys. Hypothetically, if Howie loses his mind and calls you on the draft day like, Steve, don't ask how I got your number. Should we take Strong or Davis? Who are you advising him to take and why? That's a great question, man. Strong or Davis? Strong or Davis? On the spot right now, without really looking over things and really getting a feel for what I think some of these guys are as players, I'm gonna probably say Strong. I'd probably take Strong over Davis. But we also have to consider the scheme fit. What are the scheme fits for the players? How do you feel about moving Maddox to free? You can. Depends on what you feel about other guys playing the nickel, but he's been so good in the nickel, I'd probably just leave it alone. You know what I mean? Like, he's been really good in the nickel. I would only do that if you clearly have a shortcoming at safety and it's hurting you in games, and then you just have to figure out an answer, and you feel more secure with your backups or guys that you can bring in potentially to play nickel, and then maybe make a decision like that. What's up, Eagles Uncensored? How you doing, buddy? He said, yo, what's good, Gate? A little late, but I made it. Hey, appreciate you getting here, man. What's up, Sage? He said, can Milton Williams play on the interior role that BG played? What would he need to do? Yeah, I mean, Milton Williams could be a 3 and I think they see him more as a Malik Jackson type than more so a Brandon Graham. I'm on board with you, Sage. I really view him more as a Brandon Graham type, but I think the Eagles personally see him more as a Malik Jackson type, to where he's a 3 technique that can give you the athleticism to play outside as a 5 tech. I think it's more the way that they see him. But yes, I mean, he's got a really good initial pass rush. Now, I still think he's got to develop a little bit there. I definitely think when teams double the interior defensive lineman, and Milton's the interior defensive lineman that they're going to double, then climb the second level on after doubling him, I think he can get washed out of his gap assignment. I think he's got to get a little bit better. But I love Milton Williams' effort, man. He fights to stay in gaps. I do love that about him. Even though if he does get washed out of them, it ain't due to a lack of effort, man. I love that about him. I love Maddox in the slot. Who would want to replace him with? Who would we replace him with? Draft hire. All right, guys. It is an hour and 35 minutes, almost an hour and 36 minutes, guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm going to try to get you guys another video. I am working on Kenny Pickett's. I'm working on Kenny Pickett's video, guys. So just give me a little time on Kenny Pickett, and I'll get that out to you guys. Today's video probably won't be Kenny Pickett. It'll probably be kind of an unrelated topic to where maybe we talk a little bit about free agency, because I need to mix in kind of several topics. So while I'm still getting the requisite film I think I need for Kenny Pickett's evaluation, I'll bring up another kind of conversation today. Okay, guys. Let me get a couple of your comments before we jump off here, man. I'm slightly. Wow, Sam. I'm slightly concerned that Doug Peterson might look at Kevin Patullo as his next offensive coordinator. What do you think? He wants his old buddy back. He wants Press Taylor back. It's possible. It's possible, Sam. How do you think Sweat would do if we put him in the wide 9? He's athletic, man. I think he'd fare pretty well, to be honest. Have a good one, Coach. Thank you, Akam. I meant Willis, not Davis. I was wondering where you were going with that. I was like, that's, yeah. I typed it so much, it triggered the predictive text on my iPad. My question is Willis or Strong? Oh, do you want a guy that's pro-ready right now, or do you want the upside guy? Because I have guys I can play at quarterback right now, I would say give me the upside guy in Malik Willis. Because I know I have Gardner Minshew or I have Jalen Hurts here. Do I want to spend those picks on either guy? No. Do I like the fact that Carson Strong is probably not going in the first round? I do. Because although I think Carson Strong is far more likely to be, a guy that can step onto a field and play right away when compared to Malik Willis, I don't think Carson Strong is beating out Jalen Hurts his first year. I do think that he gives you 4 years. At worst, he's a 4-year, bridge quarterback type, starting bridge quarterback or backup, a really cost-effective backup that can read coverage and get the ball out of his hands. I don't hate either aspect here, but I think if you look at it from what's the perspective, like what are you trying to achieve, guys? What are you trying to achieve there? What's up, LJ? How you doing, buddy? Don't forget to hit that like button. So I think, Michael, it depends upon what you're trying to achieve there. If I'm looking to get a future starting quarterback, and that's the intent I'm going in there with, then I'm probably taking Malik Willis. And I'm realizing he can't play early. If I'm looking to back Jalen Hurts up and have a guy that can come off the bench and play really well, and if everything fails, at the very least, I got this, forgot about insurance policy, because I don't think it should be option 1 in terms of an insurance policy. But a guy who could potentially be a bridge quarterback, you worry about the knee. He's got arm talent. What's the outcome you're trying to get? Man, that was a great question. You kept me on here longer than I was anticipating, Michael. That was a sneaky good question, man. I can't help but think about the convo about coaching the other day with this report about no starters in this quarterback class. Getting a lot of these coaches actually develop guys. Joshua Gray, that's a very fair question. I think Caleb asked that question in our live stream Friday, which is, he asked it in regards to Malik Willis. Will there be coaching staffs where the front office want that guy, but secretly the coaching staff is thinking we don't have the guys in place to develop them? Me personally, and I know people hate this name, but just hear me out, because he can whisper to quarterbacks. If I'm a coaching staff and I know that deep down I don't have the guys in this building to develop talent at quarterback, these guys are better at guiding film and guiding an established guy, I'd go get me a Marty Morningwig. as a senior advisor, I'd bring him in, and he would be working with my young quarterback the way that he did with Jalen Hurts. That's what I would do if I was in an organization. I would go get me one, and it doesn't have to be Marty Morningweg. It's that type of coach is what I'm saying. I'd go get me a guy that can whisper to quarterbacks, and I'd get them in the room personally. All right, guys, I'm going to hop off of here. I appreciate y'all. Don't forget, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, there is a poll. I put up a poll about Jalen Hurts and, Russell Wilson. If you guys want to vote on that poll, it's up on Twitter. Also, you want to follow me on Instagram because I don't plug Instagram enough. It's over on the right-hand side, guys, the other side opposite from the Twitter handle. If you guys want to buy the trucker cap, list it down below. The quarterback tracking journal, that's listed down below as well, guys. I'm done plugging stuff because I'm about to lose my voice trying to plug stuff. I appreciate y'all, guys, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Thank y'all, man.